People of Reddit, what did a teacher do that made you automatically gain respect for them? I had a professor that made it crystal clear that if we ever made an appointment and didn't show up, he'd take 5 points off of our final grade. I tried to find him during office hours and he wasn't available. I told him that I deserved an extra 5 points because he wasn't available when he said he would be, and he gave it to me in the interest of fairness. People who stay true to their teachings are always great, provided that their teachings are moral. In my first year of high school, my class decided to play a simple prank on our English/Soc teacher by all laughing when he faced the board and then stopping every time he turned around to face us. After a few minutes of this, he just left the classroom without a word. We all sat there, confused, until a few minutes later the assistant principal comes in and explains that we've really upset our teacher. He made us believe we'd seriously ducked up. Then our teacher walked in and pretty much went gotcha. That son of a bitch had our respect from then on. The most baddest part of this is him managing to get the vice principal in on it as well. Clearly he had his boss's respect too. Mr. Halpert, hey, Vice Principal Scott, could you give me a hand with something? Vice Principal Scott, of course Mr. Halpert, I'm a friend first, boss second, probably entertainer third. We did this with our physics teacher. We would agree on a keyword, and anytime he said it we would clap, or snap or something. He caught on pretty quick. This was about the same time that mosquito ringtone became popular. It is essentially just a 15 kHz tone, but older people lose the ability to hear it. Many of us would play it at different times to irritate this one student. The teacher, who could not hear it, but understood what was happening, set up some kind of microphone array that would indicate the direction of the source of the sound. That prank ended pretty quickly. My high school science teacher paused class to rip a student apart for bullying another student. Called it out as soon as it happened, in front of everyone, and that bully never went near that other kid again. We'll always remember that. A math teacher went to the hospital several times to visit a student who had been seriously injured in an accident. The teacher offered companionship, free tutoring, and genuine encouragement. I don't ever reply to posts. Just read. With that said, I had a doctor as a kid that visited me in the hospital that was 50 or so miles out of his way when I broke my arm. I was flabbergasted when he walked in the room. We talked for over an hour. I still remember Dr. Adame to this day. He made me feel like more than a patient. Math teacher, I don't care if you have good grades or bad grades. If you work hard, I will work harder to make you pass. He worked hard for me, I passed. I had a sociology professor who gave us a do not fail checklist. Complete and you were guaranteed to pass. I also had a high school chemical teacher who bet us all $100 that if we passed his class we would pass our first college chemical class. He was just really awesome all around. He told stories about traveling the world over breaks, got absurdly off topic to teach us random stuff, had a physics lab where we got to throw eggs at him, and occasionally we had a class where absolutely nothing got done because we were having a discussion. He used to give out quarters for correcting him or for anything done really well. He put up posters about his trips and gave us extra credit quizzes about them because he said being observant was really important in chemistry. Actually there were a few really weird activities in that class. I will never forget the time he ate chalk to prove to us that it was the same stuff as in milk. He was brilliant, hilarious, and just a really incredible human being. Edit, typo. Ever find out if he had to pay anyone $100? I had a similar teacher. He would let us be who we were, listen to our iPad in class, and encouraged us to think outside the class. I gained respect for him when he saw some kids going to skip, and he called them into his class. Told them if you're gonna skip class then come to my class and do whatever you want in the back. Rather have you inside the school than outside. Everyone loved that teacher, while the other teachers couldn't stand him. He had everyone's respect. Told us a joke about his name before we could, and allowed us to eat during his classes because kids your age can't help being hungry all the time as long as we did it quietly. Great guy. His whole attitude made all of us actually pay attention and do our best. One of my teachers' name is Mrs. Cocaine, yes, pronounced like the drug, and made the first joke about it. I assume for detention she didn't give you lines. I had a teacher that liked to joke with his students a lot. Great guy. If you had an unusual name and he knew you were okay with it, he'd make a joke about it. Someone asked him one day why he never jokes about his name, and he just goes cold-faced and says bluntly pedophilia isn't funny. His name is Mr. Pedo. English teacher in high school asked where my homework was. Responded I forgot to do it, and he said to the rest of the class, why can't you guys be like scratch underscore that underscore? He doesn't come up with some excuse, he just tells me he didn't do it. Lol. I would always tell my teachers, I didn't finish it sounds a bit better than I didn't do it. Let me see what you did, and I'll give you credit. Duck. I moved out of home during high school. It was stressful, to say the least. I started to fall behind on assignments. I would be absent for days at a time. I missed tests, etc. I ended up explaining the bare minimum of my situation to my English teacher, and their response always stuck with me. Just do what you can. It may not seem like much, but right then and there, for a 16-year-old kid who felt like simply living was a burden, it was everything. When I was a kid we had to purchase these red punch cards to get lunch at school. Unfortunately we didn't have that much money, so there were times where my punch card would run out and I wasn't able to eat for a while until we got enough money to repurchase another one. Why nobody in my family applied for assistance was beyond me. I had one teacher who noticed I wasn't eating every day and she would bring an extra sandwich and offer it to me whenever she saw that. I really didn't understand how kind that was when I was a kid, but obviously as an adult, that was such an amazing gesture of kindness. In middle school I went through something similar. Would just go to my social studies class instead of the cafeteria for lunch. BC I never had food. Teacher started leaving a few dollars on my desk and would let me get lunch and eat with her. I ate with her most of my 8th grade year and I'd always bring her money that I got, like for day/holiday, to try to pay her back. She'd just put it in her drawer and give it back to me later. I remember that to this day, and I try to make sure I have change and one's on me at all times for any of my students who need it, as well as keeping my bottom drawer stocked with snacks. My students always know they can count on me for food if they are hungry. I had a principal in a new school I hadn't met yet because the first day of school at my new high school was my dad's funeral. He had no idea what I looked like, but he sought me out in the really crowded hallways and gave me a hug and his condolences. Never felt creepy, only cared about. He went on to local politics and became our mayor. Only time I have truly voted for the best person for the job, and not the least objectionable. Edited to @ wow. Thanks for the upvotes. I've never had a comment blow up like this. Mr. Peary, if you see this, you earned my instant respect and kept it with your further actions. We need more like you. I had a physical education teacher who organized basketball, volleyball, handball, and football tournaments, organized Olympic games for the local kids, and taught us dancing on weekends. On his own. Just for us kids, because we lived in a remote place without many activities and things going on. He was more than a simple teacher. Junior year of high school, English class. We were discussing a story we had read. One student, let's call him Carl, made a point. The teacher was dismissive and basically said Cole was wrong. The next day, after we took our seats, the teacher said, before we begin, I was thinking about what Carl said yesterday. I was wrong to dismiss it so quickly. Let's take a look at that again. He then went on to repeat Carl's point and initiate a conversation with the entire class. After the conversation, it became apparent Carl's point was indeed off base, but I was impressed the teacher publicly owned his mistake and went down the path he should have. I remember my first math class in college. I didn't take any math my senior year of high school because I finished my math requirements my junior year. Anyway, the first math test hit me like a truck after never having to try in high school, and I scored in the low 60s. The next 3 tests, I learned to study and got 3 98s in a row. The last week of class, the professor, who was a hard ass by the way, and would kick you out for having your phone out, called me up to her desk after class and said clearly you were having a bad day that first exam. So don't worry about that grade, because I won't count it. It really changed my view of that professor. One of my high school math teachers had a policy that you could retake any test as many times as you needed to, no penalties. And she would help tutor you during any study hall or before, or after school or during lunch. Must have been a huge pain in the ass time-wise to write new tests and tutor and grade. But her stance was that she was there to teach. And if you didn't grasp it enough for the test, you didn't gain anything by failing and moving on. But if you cared and wanted to learn how to do it, then she was responsible to support you the entire way there. Edit. Also now remembering that she spearheaded this thing around prom or dances, where she and the other teachers would pull together some money and she would tell us that if any of us couldn't afford the tickets or an outfit for them, then to see her, or drop a note on her desk, or call her, and she would make sure you got to go. And now having a better grasp on just how crappily we pay teachers, just an incredible person. Instead of shouting at my loud class for not shutting up before the lesson began, my history teacher decided to quietly tell the story of a pink elephant that wanted to be an astronaut. After a few seconds, people started to shut up and listen about the pink elephant. When everyone was quiet and listening, he stopped mid-story. As much as it made me respect him. Why didn't you finish the story, FFS? That cliffhanger. We had an exam saying I'll test your honesty and your teamwork. I'm gonna leave the room once your exam starts. So we thought it's between honesty that we don't share answers with each other and teamwork by cheating. We were so desperate and cheated the exams. Professor came back 5 minutes before the time is up and asked, so did you share your answers with one another? And yes, we said. Okay, he said. Since you are all honest and you proved to me that you had your teamwork as a class, I will exempt all of you for this exam. I was in college and my teacher ran in about 10 minutes late. His excuse went something like this. Sorry I'm late guys. I was. It's not really important AHH. Yeah, just that. Me, a smartass, Godzilla. Without missing a beat. Nope. Mothra. A small thing like a sense of humor is nice. I had a teacher in elementary school who was prone to outbursts. He had a short fuse, at least compared to every other adult I knew at the time. For instance, when several of us in class weren't listening, he'd throw a piece of chalk against the wall to get our attention. Honestly, we just thought he was crazy. A year or maybe 2 years later, the school had a talent show. Like a big one, in the gym, in front of everyone. One of my classmates was really into music and wanted to play a drum solo. Our teacher had mentioned offhand that he used to be in a band and played drums, so my classmate asked him, sort of dared, like kids often do with adults, to play a solo in front of the school. And he did. He ducking rocked it. But that's not what made me respect him. Turns out the band he played for was a very successful, and at the time quite popular rock band. He left just before they became popular because he wanted to be a teacher. He chose teaching kids over the chance at fame and fortune and didn't regret it. Edit. Decided to look him up and he's still a teacher and doing very well. Made me smile. If you want more content like this, drop a like and click the subscribe button. New videos every day. Also, turn on the notification bell to not miss a beat.